We all understand the type of climate that we're dealing with. We're dealing with multiple offer situations.
I'd love to know sort of what's your why? What makes you tick? Why are you so successful?
Have a dialogue with your lawyer. Have a dialogue with your agent.
Both sort of passionate about sort of what we do.
Again, vet your agent to make sure that they're experienced and they're local. I like that idea.
No excuse to miss it on Saturdays from 8 to 9.
That's right.
WBZ.
And now, the show that gives you the latest and most relevant housing market news. Real Estate Radio Boston with financial expert Rick Shearer and legal professional Ali Alavi.
I think you'll agree with me, especially with this millennial generation and really just how society has evolved, very short attention spans.
Very short.
And so you only have a certain amount of time to capture that buyer as they're perusing online.
Yes. Yeah, that's really key. And that's why imaging of the real estate is so key in getting buyers to come to the property. They're on their internet, websites at work and at home, and they're flipping through all these links that have, photos and quick details. And if they don't see something they like, or which is really, really a hard thing to sell, an empty property that has no furniture and no sign of life, they skip right over it. Yeah. They're not seduced. They're not excited. They're not imagining themselves living there. All they're doing is looking at a picture of a house that they don't like the looks of.
Right.
It can be dark. It can be crooked. It could be, unstaged with too many things in the room. And it's really key for us as realtors to educate our sellers to understand it's a different market than it was 10, 15 years ago. It's visual and their attention span is short.
Well, and that's the thing too. And I think, you'd agree, sellers right now understand that it's a seller's market, right?
Yes.
And I think sometimes sellers will sit back and say, well, maybe I don't need to do the staging or getting professional photography or one of what do you say to that?
Well, fortunately, there's enough studies that have been done that statistically people that have staged properties that were versus empty or not staged neatly, they get a higher price.
Right.
So that's one good thing. And then, you really can just show them what's online. There's plenty of places where people aren't doing it right, where you can show them, do you really want to show your house like this? And if you were the buyer, would you run over and want to come to the open house?
Absolutely.
And so you almost have to educate them. Right. It's also emotional. It's personal. So it's awkward sometimes. I mean, I staged recently a property where, I went in with my marketing person and we staged together and we got this fabulous rug and these great pillows. And, we went in and it's their home and they never would have picked that rug. It's not that they have bad taste. Right. They have different tastes. And they're like, what are you doing to my property? But that's what will show great.
Because you're showcasing it. It's a product. You're getting a product ready for sale. I
tell them you got to do it like it's in a showroom, like it's Pottery Barn catalog.
Yeah.
And that way they kind of get their head around. I'm not selling my living room. I'm selling a living room.
Right. No, that's such huge advice. And again, I see a lot of sellers just go, man, I don't have to do much, or I can do this on my own. Like, let me go do this on my own.
No.
Yeah, it's just, let me save the commissions. And I think the study came out, KCM talked about it, where you lose about 19% when you try to go at it alone. And that's typically two different ways. Either they overprice it sits there, or they underprice it and they lose all that money.
Right.
So having the expert like you coming into it, you represent a bunch of different hot markets. And so I want to get into just really what's going on there. I mean, we've talked about Brookline. I mean,
control.
Is there one, take out Cambridge out of it. I mean, Brookline is just a place to be.
It's the place to be. It's always been a huge draw between the education. Their public school systems are great. They have fabulous real estate. It's, it's got a lot of character.
Right.
It's so close to Boston and it's next to the medical area.
Right.
I mean, the Longwood medical area, people want to walk there when they start a family. They don't want to have to commute for 25, 30 minutes. So between that and it's got a great vibe.
Right.
It really does.
Yeah.
It's very diversified and it's got, you could be in Brookline and not need to go to Boston. You have the theater, you have the restaurants, you have parks for the
Fenway
kids.
Park is right.
So, and
down
I think
the street.
it's also receiving a lot of buyers from the South End and from downtown Boston who like those Victorian, environments and the walk to get a coffee and walk to, the drugstore. So I think it's also from the gentrification of what went on in the city. it's just trailing out into Brookline, Newton, Jamaica Plain, depending on what the buyer's needs are.
Well, what I want to do, guys, is, and thank you very much for both being here, because I think this is such a topical topic, because every time you turn on, you either see Home and Gardens TV, they're talking flip this, flip that, flipping Boston, flipping every town, and everybody literally for 30 minutes goes, well, I can do that. And so some people are going and doing it based on a TV show. Some people are going and sitting in these seminars from the guys from the TV show for free. Come and do me, and then we're going to upsell you. Right. And then some people are reaching out to Brownstone Realty Group, who's again part of the show, and really getting in-depth, hands-on education. So we've got really 3 different types of people out in the marketplace that are buying property, putting money into them, and then putting them back on the market. And I think you can look at, there's different quality associated with that.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that goes with any business. There's going to be great real estate brokers that, like the people you bring on. There's other people that really don't know what the hell they're doing. It's the same thing with contracting or any business, lawyers, everybody. They're all the same. Even
right.
Mortgage brokers.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing in the marketplace, I think Tony and I were talking about it a couple weeks ago, is that there is just an onslaught of these renovation homes coming on from kind of the end of that foreclosure wave and short sales and just distressed properties. And some of them are done very well, and some of them are not. And, company like Brownstone, who we know very well, who does a great job at what they do, they're not probably the ones we're looking out for. Right. They're the ones who you hope that you're affiliated with that purchase.
Right.
So there's some great ones and then some bad ones. And we started talking about, well, geez, we should really get on and talk about that piece of it, what buyers should be looking for, not as a buyer beware, as a buyer education.
Right.
These are the things you need to be concerned with.
Guys, let's get right into it. Are you seeing, what percentage of the market right now, Josh, again, 10,000 foot level, didn't prep you for this, but are you seeing come on as either new product, either new construction, or recently renovated properties?
So in our area, new construction is still very low. So we don't have a lot of new starts.
Okay. So
we're seeing a lot more, I'd say, 10% of the marketplace is probably new construction or newly renovated homes.
Okay.
Flip homes. So it's not a huge segment, but it's enough of a segment where it's right in the middle of that buyer pool in our area. It's that $250,000 to $400,000 range. And it is a part of the marketplace. It's not onesie twosie stuff.
Yeah. And so, and again, you've got the buyers right now that literally don't want to swing a hammer. So walking into maybe a $350,000 new, single family home and going, wow, there's granite. Wow, that's freshly painted, and just getting tunnel vision. And again, what we're here to do is kind of unravel some of the things that need to be looking out for. So what do you, Josh, when you and your buyer agents walk people through, what do you look for?
So the first thing we want to look at is just the overall quality of the house and not be sucked in by those quick things. Because again, young buyers so quickly are sucked in by it has granite.
Right.
Kitchen can be 40 years old, falling down, but it's got granite. Let's buy it. So we want to look at the quality of start to finish. The home, the finishes, how the construction looks, and not everybody probably has an eye for that. And that's why we have a guy like Tony who comes in or can at least advise on those things. But you want to also understand, after you're done kind of that initial wow factor, is, okay, let's get some understanding of who this is. The person who's doing this, or Brownstone Realty, for example, they're going to go in, they're going to buy the property. It may need $200,000 of work. So they're going to take the risk, go in, buy the property, assume the risk, do the renovations, and they're going to be hopeful that they can turn around, sell it, make a profit, move on to the next one.
Right. And
again, a company like Brownstone does a high quality renovation. You're excited about that. So buyers need to understand there's not a huge profit margin. I've seen people make $50,000, $60,000, but most of them are 20, 30 grand. Some of them are 10 grand.
And some of them are writing a check.
Negative 20, right? So it depends on who's doing it, how seasoned they are, did they go over budget? So all those things matter, but they need to be focused on, is the property that I'm buying worth what the market is or what they're asking for in the market?
And that's why having a phenomenal buyer's agent in that market is going to help you. And then, the check and balance is, of course, getting a mortgage. We're going to do an appraisal on the property as well. So
exactly.
Tony, let's talk a little bit about just things to keep in mind, questions to ask, things to look out for as they're navigating through the property.
Okay, so Josh touched on it earlier where what was the renovation work? What kind of work was done in the house? If it's all cosmetic things, like painting or replacing flooring, things along that nature, those are cosmetic items. If you're not opening up walls or engaging anything electrical or plumbing wise, they're not going to have to pull a permit. So but those will just be, look at the quality of what was done. There's probably less risk there. But if there's large renovations where they're removed walls, the thing now is open floor plans. So you're always getting like the split level ranch where you take out the wall between the kitchen and the dining room, living room, and now it's one big open room.
Right.
Well, was there a permit pulled? So you see large renovations like that, full scale kitchen renovations and things along that nature. They should have pulled a permit. So that's the first step, is what was done, and then what does the permit say was done?
Right.
And then whose name is on that? Is there a contractor? Is it somebody different than the flipper or the person that you're buying the home from? What's their reputation? Who are they? Are they a licensed insured contractor, or are they two guys in a pickup?
And we ran into this recently. We had a renovation in a split home that they took down a wall. And the first thing that one of my buyer agents asked was, okay, let's see the permit. We want to understand how it was secured. Did they put the beam in and so on and so forth? No permit. On top of that, they added a bathroom. So, they added plumbing. They added some electrical. No permit. So a lot of people say, oh, geez, no worries, no big deal.
Yeah.
I know Ali has talked about this in regards to on the radio and permits and the assumption of liability, but now you're taking that on.
Right.
So now you go to sell that home in 2 years and there's no permits for all this work that was done. They can say, hey, geez, there's no permits. We want you to go and pull permit and get it approved by the town.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a big headache, and they could say no. And so, if you're buying that property without permits and you go to sell it in a couple of years from now and you get asked for the permits, you're taking on that risk and liability. And so permits are huge. And so if someone wants to go find out if a permit was pulled, Tony, how do they go do that?
Well, the local building department will have the records of the permits that were pulled on the property. They'll have, if there's open permits, because a permit may have been pulled but not closed, which means it wasn't inspected.
Right.
So they said, yeah, we have a permit. Here's your permit number. Here's the beautiful permit card. It's right here in the window. There's no signatures on the back.
One of the things you had said
Even
to me,
though a lot of times they'll do it electronically now with the online permitting system. So you got to be careful that the card without the signatures is not the only issue.
And I tell my agents too, I say, the listing agent may have a copy of something, but you always want to check with the town. The town's going to be exact, accurate, and know exactly what's going on. And try to speak with the building inspector.
Right.
Make sure that he or the assistant building inspector has been out to the property, the sign-offs have been done. And they sometimes will say, you worry about this, look at that. Geez, I don't know if they did this. I need to go back and check. Now
Right.
you may create a little assistance in making sure certain things got finished.